So what I want you to do, of course, is to effectively replicate what's already in Hello World. So you'll see that it's already created the main. What you can now do is go back and sort of begin to look at the functionality in load data and begin to replicate that. So you'll see that the first thing the main does is apply the method called run. Now we do have something called a class. So classes, as we discussed in class, are basically forms of Python code that creates objects. Object-oriented programming is used to use objects which contain methods and allow you to build more complex code using a variety of building blocks effectively. Classes are basically, you can think of them as building blocks that create modularized functionality, which can reference other classes or use methods within their own class. So sometimes or oftentimes a combination of those two. So if you look at the class load data, so we can sort of copy this. This is how you create a class. And basically a class is just referenced using the keyword class. So you can go ahead and do this in your code, for instance here. So class load data, okay? So that's a way to do it. And generally you want to keep this principle of capitalizing names of classes. It's a good way to sort of keep this in mind. In Python they do like to use this kind of principle, but again Python's not strict, so you don't have to do this. So that's how you sort of reference or create the class. But you can see we also need to import some libraries, so go ahead and import the ones that we'll need. You should get some errors because we haven't created all these libraries, but go ahead and copy them. This will allow you to see what libraries we'll need to create in our own new class. So go ahead and copy them. So now we have the class. From there you'll have to create the methods. So you can define run, for instance, which is one of the first methods. You'll see in classes they create something called self as an input. So classes are an instantiation that allow you to create specific instances of objects. We'll talk about that a little bit later on, but for now that's something you'll have to keep in mind. So classes, when they are created, they also need to sometimes have input data. So for instance, they are instantiated with a number of different kinds of inputs. So classes have what are called, effectively are kind of creators or instantiators that can be used to create them. A constructor is the typical term used in object-oriented programming. So go ahead and create that constructor, and that will allow you then to create what you need to create the class.